Let's make my Splash of Love quilt pattern, which uses a print layer cake bundle as well as two background fabrics. Now please note, if you are using two prints that are within the layer cake bundle, you may want to buy extra yardage or fat quarters to substitute those other print counts. But with your background yardage, you will subcut them into 10.5-inch squares, which I have already done so to save us some time. Then with whichever background fabric that is lighter, on the wrong side, using a fabric marking tool, draw a 45-degree line. Then afterwards, select one of each background 10.5-inch square and place them on top of each other, right sides together, and sew a 1/4-inch seam allowance on both sides of the line you drew. Then with a rotary cutter, cut on the 45-degree line that you drew and press your half square triangles open, and you will yield two half square triangles. Now you'll just keep repeating these steps until you've made enough for the quilt size that you are making. These half square triangles will be the background for your appliques. And speaking of appliques, within the free PDF pattern, which the link will be down below in the description, print out your templates at 100%. Do not scale to print, and then go ahead and check that 1-inch register mark to make sure that everything was printed correctly. Now, as a bonus, this applique pattern, I've added both raw edge and regular applique templates for you. Now, you will cut on the thinner line for the raw edge applique, or for the regular applique, you will cut on the bold exterior line. Now, do note you will have enough fabric to create either or applique that you prefer, but since I love raw edge applique, I will be cutting on the thin inner line for both templates. Then, using the cardboard backing from the layer cake, retrace out your templates. That way you have a thicker template to cut from. And if you are not using a layer cake, or if your layer cake does not have that cardboard backing, you will need template plastic instead, which I will have a link down below in the description for as well. Then for your raw edge applique, you're going to take your heat and bond and cut 10.5-inch strips, which the pattern will inform you how many to cut. Now go ahead and stack a few heat and bond papers on top of each other and start cutting out the template A from your heat and bond carefully. Now remember, you are using a rotary cutter, so please go slow, be very careful. If you do not like cutting templates out from a rotary cutter, then go ahead and trace them out and then cut them out with a pair of scissors. Now, as for your template B, you are going to cut 5.5-inch strips, which the pattern will also inform you how many to cut as well. And then you're going to cut the shapes out from the strips. Now, with the template B, there is an important note. You will need to cut the shapes out that have the text showing on the front, and then you will need to flip it over and cut the same shape out, but on the reverse side. So do note you will be creating two different directions that you will need for this quilt pattern. So please pay very close attention to this within the pattern. This is the only tricky part that you might accidentally overlook. Now, after all of your heat and bond templates are cut out, go ahead and take one print layer cake 10-inch square, and on the wrong side of the fabric, iron down one of each template. Now, I have room available so that if you want to do the regular style applique, you will have enough room to do so, as well as move your templates around if you want to get that pretty print or image within your template. As an example, this fabric square has gorgeous florals on it, so I may want to manipulate the heat and bond around just to get my favorite florals within it. But you can do it however you wish, as long as you get one of each template within the 10-inch square. Now, once you've ironed down the heat and bond, it is time to carefully cut out your templates for one last time with fabric scissors. At this point, do take your time, because how your edges will come out will be the final outcome of how your appliques will look. Now go ahead and repeat the same steps until you've cut enough for the quilt size that you are making. And now that my templates are ready, it is time to create the applique block. And you're going to start by taking one background half square triangle and create a finger press seam down the middle that is opposite of the half square triangle seam. Then go ahead and take one of each template and mix up your prints to give it that scrappy look. Then with your larger template, which is template A, go ahead and remove the heat and bond backing and place it 1 inch away from this bottom right hand side, and then go ahead and iron it down in place. Then for the next part, I honestly just eyeball it and place them equally on the sides, which is about 1 inch away from the edge, kinda. And then you're just going to create this water splashing looking effect. But once you have everything in place and where it would like to be, just go ahead and remove the heat and bond paper backings and iron it down in place. Now at this time, or once you have completed all of your blocks, what you can do is stitch about 1/8 of an inch all the way around your appliques, or you can hand stitch it down, or even use those decorative stitches on your sewing machine to secure your appliques. Now, I am personally skipping this step because I am going to custom quilt this quilt myself. And while I am custom quilting it, I am going to do this step at my longer machine while I'm also quilting it. But go ahead and repeat these steps until you've made enough applique quilt blocks. Now that all your blocks are made, we are going to create one larger quilt block by placing 4 blocks around like so, and then you'll sew your blocks together to form rows, and then lastly sew the rows together to complete the quilt block. And of course, repeat this until you've made enough for the quilt size that you are making. And now that we have all of our quilt blocks finally completed, it is time for the easiest part, which is laying your quilt out, which is super simple because all you have to do is place one block right next to each other, and of course sew your blocks together to form rows, and lastly sew the rows together to complete your quilt top. And here is what my quilt top looks like all finished, and I will be using some leftover fabric that I had used for the background for my backing as well. And like I mentioned, I am going to be custom quilting this quilt. Now, as for thread choices, I'm actually going to find a thread that matches the yellow and white background areas as best as possible. And I ended up choosing Glide Sand for the yellowy gold centers, as well as Glide in the color Linen for the white areas. And here is what my quilt looks like all completed. And boy, oh boy, this quilt took me forever to custom quilt. That's why this video came out a little late. The white background areas, I had packed it in very dense, and honestly, about halfway through, I did have regrets. But I am glad I stuck it through because now that it is off my longer machine, I am in love with the quilting. Yes, it might be a little much, but I do love how the background is like super textured and then the appliques are really nice and puffy and smooth. And then the yellow areas is like a medium texture. So rubbing your hand across this quilt feels so good. But that's me. I have a thing for texture and just how things feel. But I do hope you have enjoyed my Splash of Love quilt pattern. If you could please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified for your next amazing quilt project.